We don't really have time right now just because the way I put up myself out there. You can at least try to kind of figure out the best possible way for yourself. What do you think are, like, let's say, the top one thing that's coming to your mind, or the top five things which you think are completely something which is making the communication totally non-effective? Forget about the effective side of the world. What is it that you feel is totally non-effective? And you can tell to me in a way that you are a consumer. Let's say you are consuming somebody's communication. What are the things that they put you off? That this is not what I prefer, and this is something that really puts me off when somebody's communicating to me. Totally, lack of information. Maybe what they asked is not what I've given. Maybe I've given them extra information, or maybe I've given them information which is totally out of context. They were asking me for some other service, or they were just trying to understand something, and I gave them, like, let's say, a plethora of information because I just felt that this is my moment, this is my last chance to communicate with them, so I flooded them with that information. I was not able to give them enough clarity so that when they received the email, they were not able to figure out and have a right context to what I asked for, right? Being very unprofessional, that sometimes what happens, and it happens even on social media platforms like LinkedIn, right? Somebody might add you up and they would automatically start a very informal conversation, right? They will be like, hey friend, hey, what you doing, how's your day been going? Or you suddenly cannot just get into or step into somebody's friendly zone, right? There is a layer of progression of how you know somebody and develop an equation with somebody, both in a professional setup or even at a personal setup. Like when you even, when somebody even start a course in a college, you can't just first day start, like patting the people on the back and say, hey buddy. So there is a progression of things happening. And I have very often noticed that even on platforms like LinkedIn, which is heavily promoted as a very, very business professional and social media, platform, people often add you and then they will just send you a very, very unprofessional message right away. So, we don't like it. And sometimes we don't realize that we also end up doing that. There would be language mistakes. There would be, so like when we were talking about English versus Hindi or any other vernacular language, if whatever language you are comfortable in, the idea should be that you should try to communicate in that language. If that is not allowed, let's say you are a little shorthand on English, and the business setup or any setup requires you to communicate in that, you can at least try to kind of figure out the best possible way for yourself. And today we are living in a time, guys, where we have all the tools accessible. So if you are a little short on, let's say, on English, and you have been given a task where you have to continuously write an email or mention some context somewhere, here is chat gpt for you, right? Here there are so many AI tools. There is Google. So don't sit down with this as an hindrance and try to make it difficult for other person. Just try to figure out these tools for yourself, and there are tons and tons of tools. Even I use chat gpt to quite an extent when I'm short of time and I just need something very fast. So I will just probably write up a context, put it in the chat gpt, I'll say rephrase. So that's intelligent enough to give me avoid any language mistakes, put up any grammatical errors and all, and just create a very clear content. Another thing which is important is delivery of the content, which is very, very important. We might be short of time. We might do not be having the right channels. Like, say, for example, I go to a group meet because now post COVID, we have all transitioned to a very, very virtual side of the world. So there should be always an effort from our side to make it very, very effective for the other person, right? We cannot just take it as an excuse. And you would see often this happens in setups that people will take up the calls. Let's say they're in a very important business meeting and they will take up a call on the road. There's a lot of noise happening and you're not able to figure out a soundproof situation and all. If these are the things which makes the communication non-effective, right? And we just spoke about few things. There are tons of other things. There was somebody, I think, who mentioned body language as well, which is very important. You can't be having a very wrong body language when you're talking, especially in a business setup, right? We have been told and taught to behave a particular way in an interview, in a presentation, and many of the such setups, right? We have been told to be very well dressed when we are in a financial institute or a banking setup. We have been told to be very, very sharply ready when we are going for a sales meeting. Why have we been told all of those things? Because our body language matters a lot, right? The way we are, again going back to my previous slide of P2P, right? Because at the end of the day, even if I'm representing, let's say, a company like Google or Amazon for that matter, but I have full potential to kind of make or break that deal for the company just because the way I put up myself out there, right? No matter, the companies might be having the best of the product in the world, they might be most effective ones, but if I don't do a very effective communication, I don't bring myself up to the table as a representation of those companies, or let's say those banks, I will actually kind of completely mess up the whole situation. What is that one thing? Just give me that one thing that is on the top of your communication thing, that I at least make sure of this. I think more or less we are all talking around this similar line, right? We are not talking very differently. It's just that the way we are seeing communication from our side. So obviously, now look at it. If just by doing this, we already know, and there's no need for Nidhi as Mittal to come on a 1 hour session with you. If you just think through more around it and have your own list, you will be very able to categorize and say that these are the things which is complete don't. So we actually already know that these are the things which doesn't work for us, right? And these are total don'ts for us. And these are the things we want to do as a topmost priority. And if we just pick up topmost priority of everyone, we already have an effective way of doing a communication. We know that whatever we're trying to do with any individual, whether it's a one-time interaction or it's a long-time interaction, it's a long-term relationship with an account or whatever it might be, or a professor, you want to build the trust, right? They should be able to trust whatever you're saying. You should be able to trust back as to whatever information they're providing. Clarity, we discussed it enough here that, if there's no clarity and context setting, we lose out the entire thing. And, we lose out people because, guys, understand, we are in a time where we are exposed to so much of information all the time. Like right now, after this session, you will be exposed to another 100 sets of things. You might be watching our content, you might reading a newspaper, magazine, you might even be talking to somebody. We don't really have time right now. We're not looking at those days where we had limited things to look at. We have so much of things that if people are not very clearly and specifically telling us there's this, we do not have time to go back to that, right? If somebody sends me a mail and just, it's completely out of context, I'm not getting what they're trying to say, I probably genuinely would not have a time to reply back to that individual to clarify. It might directly go back to my trash, right? That is the short span of time that we are living in. Problem solving, obviously, if you are in a setup, like as a salesperson, I'm obviously trying to do problem solving every day, right? When somebody is trying to buy a service from me, what are they buying for? I mean, do they have extra money to buy it for? No. They have a problem that they're trying to get a solution from. And if I'm not able to be on the solution side, and if I'm talking on the problem side only, then I'm not really helping them. And as an individual, also, that's another thing that I've always developed, that I am not a problem talker. I'm a solution provider in any setup. Like even if I'm talking about a personal conversation, I always try to look at the things from the lens of a solution side. So if you actually help up somebody and I'll give you very important, not important. I'll just give you one example around it. It was a very start of my career in 2004 when I mentioned to you. I was just on my desk, and it used to be an MNC that I used to work for, which I just received a phone call on my desk from a little bit of a wrong number setup. There were intercoms there. And what she asked me was that, she actually inquired me for some kind of a technical help required from another department. I happened to knew that team, and she actually reached out to me in a wrong way, right? And I just landed that information to her. I connected her to the right people on the chat and the phone call and all that stuff. It was an international call that landed up, and she eventually had a solution to her problem, right? Now, it was not something magically that I did, but when somebody has reached out to you for a particular problem, and if you are in that capacity that you can go and beyond and help them, and you have that information available to them with yourself, just lend it over. Whenever you're talking, we have a lot of habit to tell what all we know, because it's very much related to what I said earlier, that we have so much of context right now available to us. We all are watching a lot of stuff, we are all reading a lot of stuff, we have so much to tell others, and in that telling mode, we obviously miss out most of the times listening. And this happens a lot on WhatsApp chat, I've realized. That is why I personally prefer to do less business conversation on the chat. I prefer phone calls, I prefer one-on-one meetings, I prefer emails. Because what happens, what the way we utilize WhatsApp as a tool is that we leave a message. We think it's a one-way communication. We just left what we wanted to. And that is why we are not wary about the privacy of people. Sometimes at 12 o'clock in the night, you will find somebody leaving a message, which you will be able to check at 8 o'clock. But that person felt that they have done their job. They told you what they wanted to. But then there is no listening, right? Maybe you wake up in a very rush mode, or you have 10 other messages of priority, and that message went down. So what was the point of leaving a message at 12 o'clock? You could have rather done it at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock when you're up, and you would rather chat with the person that say that, hey, this is what I wanted to do. And then you're in an active listening mode. But most of the times we even miss that. And I'm telling you, these are the realistic problems I face every day. So I'm not trying to build these problems up. I'm genuinely telling that this happens with me a lot. Every morning I'll have one message which dropped to me by 11:30 or 12 in the night, right? And being empathetic, which is very connected to what we are talking about, that, we're not sensitive to people's time. We're not sensitive towards what situation people might be in. We have made our channels and the communication so fast running at the moment that we want immediate response, right? Imagine the time I was talking about when I started my career, when if we send an email, there used to be a 24 to 40-hour response time. And I'm not talking about the technical problem, right? It's not an IT team that IT team will respond to a ticket. I'm talking about a general communication. That when we used to drop an email to our, let's say, even our senior who's sitting right across the corner, there was an expectancy that, the response might come to you in the next 24 to 48 hours. If there is an urgency, mention that in the subject line. Just mention urgent and important. I literally remember writing that in a bracket, urgent and important. And then people considering it because it will pop up in the email. But today, what we are doing, every message that we send, we want an immediate response. We are calling the bank. We are writing we are raising a complaint to the customer care. We are trying to reach out to anybody. If they do not respond to it, we immediately top it up with a follow up, or we'll just suddenly start losing our patience, and we'll be like, they're not responding to us. So, these are the things which are really not working well for us. The kind of ecosystem we have developed, more than the effective communication, more than the writing skills, more than the language skills, more than constructing your message in a particular way, the right kind of body language, use your left hand like this, right? Those times are gone. I've gone through all of those trainings in my professional career, effective presentation, body language, this and that. But today's time has drastically changed because we are now living in a very, very fast paced, competitive, and heavily consumed content space, right? So we have to operate accordingly.